Hey y'all, I'm Courtney.
And I'm Sarah.
And this is Vada Stipplers,
the podcast where we read all the books we used to steal off our grandmother's nightstands.
And then we drink about it. Hey y'all. I don't know if you're like me and in the post-holiday malaise where you don't know if it's a Sunday or if it's March of 2021. So if you are in that malaise, I'm going to suggest a book to you. And if you aren't, well, I'm suggesting it anyway. This episode is brought to you by Kensington Publishing's Don't Look by Alexandra Ivy. Just some notes on Miss Ivy. She delivers a tale full of chilling suspense and unforgettable twist. Her blend of electrifying thrills, complex characters, and taut pacing is certain to captivate readers of romantic suspense and crossover female thriller readers. Her novels appeal to fans of Lisa Jackson, Mary Burton, Carla Neggers, Allison Brennan, and all lovers of romantic suspense, especially those who enjoy harder edge suspense. If you're on his list, a woman's naked body is discovered, cold and pale as the surrounding snow, except for the crimson scarf around her neck. The week that follows brings more victims and evidence of a terrifying pattern. The killer has a list, and every woman on it will get what she deserves. You're As Good. Dr. Lynn Gale followed in her father's footsteps to become a vet in Pike, Wisconsin. For years, she had little contact with Keir Jansen, son of the town's late sheriff. Suddenly, he's back, insisting that Lynn's in danger. She can't believe anyone would target her, but someone is hunting the women of Pike, savoring every last moment. So this sounds like it's a second chance romance. Also, you've got murder. Sometimes we need some good murder, especially after the holidays. And also, the sexiness of Wisconsin. You can't go wrong. Alexandra Ivy's Don't Look. You can get it wherever you buy your books. Thanks, y'all. Hey, y'all. In this episode, we read Diana Palmer's The Humbug Man. Now, this book doesn't really have any trigger warnings per se. I mean, for me, the trigger warning is saying The Humbug Man because every time I say it, I just start laughing like that. So that's a possible trigger warning.
There's also the author disposes of one late spouse by shooting her off the side of a mountain with a child in a trailer, and the other late spouse by having him murdered as a journalist in another fake Central American country.
It's also the trailer is way more comedic than like we made it. Every time I think about that, it makes me laugh. You could also be triggered by precocious 9-year-olds who are in military school. That's a trigger.
Yes, and there is definitely a Tom Selleck impersonator in this house.
No, overall, it's a pretty like mild-mannered book. It's very short. It's 95 pages, so you know.
It seems to have like been the thing that you got as like a little free Christmas bonus if you were subscribing to Silhouettes in 1986.
Yeah, or like a bigger thing because it's very short. But it was very good. Also, a trigger warning is my beagle making heavy noises that sound like death throes in the background. So, but you guys have been listening to this show for a while. You're used to sad, weird beagle noises.
Yeah, my dog makes no noises. None at all.
Well, your dog is not really a dog. It's just like a potato that put on skin, and it's like, maybe they won't notice I'm really a potato.
Well, she keeps trying to shoot that skin off to get the potato underneath, so that's probably accurate.
So the Humbug Man. The Humbug Man was written in 1986.
Well, hold on. We need to talk about what we're doing and what we're drinking. And I am drinking a box of Old Vine Zinfandel, which is my favorite Boda box, but they don't usually have it. It's like the rare Boda box.
Yeah, I've gotten really into like a red blend lately, so I had to try that one.
And I'm drinking it out of the glass that Courtney gave me for Christmas, which is exciting.
It is very exciting. I'm just drinking.
Huge, which is nice.
What does it say on it? It's got a fun saying.
It says, "Don't rush me. I'm a woman of leisure."
I want to be a woman of leisure so bad. I got them for like wishful shopping. I was like, oh, yes, let me be a woman of leisure.
Really, you shouldn't rush me because it won't help.
That's true.
Yeah, it'll just make me go more.
I'm just drinking basic bitch Pinot Grigio, but I'm drinking it in my fun like 1980s like Memphis style corksicle. So
it reminds me of a climbing wall. It's cute. Yes. I like it.
I'm very sporty. Yeah. It's about the
very sporty.
So are you reading?
Are you reading or listening to anything lately?
Jinx, we're so on fire today. Like we're just simpatico. What am I reading? I just finished a Jackie Lau book. I think it's called, hold on one second, everyone. We're so professional. Jesus. We've already restarted this a couple of times, or I would just say, let's restart it again. So it's Jackie Lau's Her Pretend Christmas Date. Jackie Lau is great. She is an Asian Canadian writer, and if you haven't read any of her stuff, it's super fun because she's got great representation. She's got a lot of characters that aren't just cishet women. So this one was super fun. It's got one of my favorite things, which is a starchy, like uptight hero, and it's kind of like the Dharma and Greg thing, where it's kind of the free spirit girl. She knits wacky colors, and he's, wears a tie on a date. But it was very cute. I really enjoyed it. So that's the last thing I've read. How about you? What are you reading?
I'm reading Medical Bills.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's super fun.
It's been a time for you. This fall has not been the best.
Yeah, 2020 hit us with one on the way out. I bring this up. I don't like to be like, this is the cancer, but so my husband got diagnosed with prostate cancer, and he is, we are not usual prostate cancer age, and he had surgery. Things went well. The pathology report's great. The medical bills are not. But I bring it up not so that you feel sorry for me, but because we are all at an age now where you should bully your male loved one into making sure they're getting all the blood tests that they need to be getting. It's a blood test. All right. Yeah. It doesn't have anything to do with your butt to start with. So
that's not on your first visit.
Yeah, they buy you dinner first.
Yeah.
So it's a blood test. It's the PSA test, and it's what they do like in your normal battery of tests after you get to a certain age, and especially if you have any prostate cancer in your family, which we don't. But we like he inherited my relatives when we got married. That doesn't make any sense, but he doesn't have any in his family. But yes, make sure if you are a man, or your loved one, if you are not assigned male at birth, if you have a prostate, you should be making sure that they are counting your PSA and get the biopsy if it's at all marginal, because ours was very low. Ours was like just barely in the border range, and they got the biopsy, and I thought I was wasting my time going to this appointment with this dude, because I'm like, oh, come on, he's just gonna say it's fine. He did not say it's fine. In fact, he kind of like I guess it's hard to tell people they have cancer, so like the guy was like, he like kind of built up to it, and he was like, it's cancer in there. Like he was starting up a musical. It's great. It's not great at all.
No. It is. I mean, I'm glad that things are. My father-in-law had it too, and he had the surgery. He didn't have to have chemo, but so now I have to start hounding my husband to get his stuff checked.
It's just a blood test on the first day, so make sure that you do that. Otherwise, it's hard to walk that like kind of fine line between, you don't want to be like the cancer people, and you don't want like people constantly talking to you about like the cancer thing, but on the other hand, if you don't say anything, then like
when you got the big thing in the room, people, but I think also it's good to talk about it, because a lot of people appreciate hearing about it, and it's something that we need to talk more about.
Yes. So it is a slightly embarrassing cancer, so I think we should talk more about it. It is not like the really bigly embarrassing, oh my god, it's come to me now, like the big embarrassing, it's not butt cancer, but it's like butt adjacent cancer, and so people, I feel like maybe people don't talk about it as much as they need.
I'll tell you what, my father had butt cancer, and so I need to go get tested for butt adjacent or butt cancer. So when I get tested for butt cancer, I'll let everyone know about my butt cancer.
You absolutely should.
Yeah.
My tattoo artist was telling me all about his butt cancer, and I was like, I'm so glad that your butt cancer is doing well. So I love that we now live in an age where people feel much more willing to talk about their cancers, because it used to be that people just died of breast cancer and didn't want to say the word breast, and so like nobody knew it until they went to the funeral.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, the things that people get ashamed about or embarrassed about.
So I've been having the hardest time. It's like being in the beginning of the pandemic again. I can't finish anything. But what I have suddenly been able to read is, I don't know if you're familiar with the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. They're delightful little, like that. Well, there's finally a novel, but the first, like, I think 4 are little novellas. So you can read them in a day, and you can actually finish them. And they are so much fun. And they are like this truly great, like, narrative voice on the part of Murderbot. The funny thing is that I always think of Murderbot has no gender. Murderbot knows that Murderbot has no gender, but I always thought of Murderbot as looking, I don't know, vaguely feminine, like a boss bitch. And then I found out that my friend and boss Chantel always thought that Murderbot was a dude. So
the beauty of Murderbot is, Murderbot
is what you see in Murderbot.
Murderbot is anything to anyone. Hold on. This reminds me of, there was a movie, since we're on this like Tom Selleck kick, because Tom Selleck features in our book. Do you remember there was this, your husband will remember, there was this movie from the 80s starring Tom Selleck called Runaways, where there were actual little tiny murder robots. They were like these robots. I mean, they weren't tiny, but they were like these, they were supposed to be these household robots that like did stuff, swept up, but they just straight up started murdering people, which go kind of.
I promise you, Wallace knows about that movie. Yeah, I do not know about that movie.
It kind of feeds into like, there are things that I have irrational fears of because of movies. So obviously space, volcanoes, because there were so many volcano movies, murdering robots because of this movie. And then like there was a made for TV movie called Miracle in the Sky or Miracle Landing with Connie Selica in 1990, where it was about that plane that was in Hawaii and the top of the plane.
Oh shit. Off. Yeah. And the flight attendant went out.
The stewardess got sucked out.
Yeah.
People can't see my hand gesture. I'm doing this like
hand, but like that. Yes.
But yeah, so I'm always scared of like the top of a plane cheering off because of that. But anyway,
well,
sorry.
It's funny that also plays in. No, my cancer story. Yeah.
Well, no, Courtney. You got your robots. I didn't mean to take over your robots.
Yeah, well, Murderbot is robots in space, so you would hate it. No, it's funny because it does also tie in because like I was looking for like super comfort TV food when my husband was in the hospital overnight, and I mean it's weird because like we never spend the night apart, so I was just like getting drunk watching Magnum PI, and it was delightful. And Courtney suggested the episode with the killer parrot, and I have to say, premium.
Yeah.
Premium 80s television.
I have this. It's ruining the surprise, but I have this. One of my very, very old dear friends, always had this like thing with him. I told him, if anything happens to me, like in my untimely demise, even if it isn't untimely, I was like, you have to do this. It's like, it's going to be a secret. But I was like, at the height of like the saddest part of like my service or whatever, when they're showing all the pictures and, everyone's crying, I was like, I want you to just splice in the intro to Magnum PI with explanation. And he was like, I'm on it. So if you guys, if anything happens, this is in my last wishes.
So Magnum PI is very much celebrating the beauty of the 80s man, like the specific aesthetic of the 80s man. So that leads into this because Tom Selleck, if you are young and do not remember it, whereas if you're our age, you're like, oh yeah, baby. Tom Selleck is super hairy, but only on his chest, which is improbable.
He's also
deeply improbable.
For those of you who might be like, for those of you who are younger and watched Friends on Netflix and didn't watch it live, he's Monica's boyfriend for like he's Richard, the ophthalmologist, for a good couple seasons. So
well, back in the 80s, he had the best legs of anybody, male or female, you had ever seen, and he showed them off all the time in his tiny, tiny little shorts.
I think he actually played football or something because he used to kill it on Battle of the Network Stars. Like that man, he'd be on the tandem bicycle with some little tiny blonde in the back, and she'd just be, legs akimbo because Tom Selleck has just got that thing going. So Tom Selleck was always great on Battle of the Network Stars.
And he made mustaches sexy.
Oh, he was so sexy.
Generally speaking, like I'm like with a mustache that comes with a beard. I've always liked, but like the 80s, just like Ned Flanders, like the mustache is not my jam. But Tom Selleck fucking sells it, man. It's hot, and he'll wear like a sweater with the shorts, and it doesn't make any sense at all.
That's my anyway. I like it. Okay, all right.
That's what you want to be thinking about when we talk about this guy, because that's obviously what Diane Palmer was thinking about when she was thinking about this guy.
Yes.
So this book, I have you want me to read the back cover?
Yeah, or and then I can talk.
I'll explain the cover. Oh yeah, talk about Diane Palmer, and then I'll discuss the actual object, the book qua book.
Okay, so Diana Palmer. This is our first Diana Palmer, and we're definitely going to do some more because she's great. So, she is from Georgia. She is Diana. She's been writing as Diana Palmer since 1979. She's also written books as Diana Blame, Katie Curry, which made me laugh, Susan Kyle, and then she has a science fiction novel as Susan S. Kyle. So before writing fiction, she was a journalist for 16 years. And now she has over 150 books in print, more of them translated and published around the world. Her novel, Diamond Girl, was made into a movie, which was released for TV in 1998. So she grew up reading and watching like the Zane Grey novels, and that's when she fell in love with cowboys. So she is predominantly a cowboy author. So Sarah, we get a cowboy. We've had one cowboy, now we have another one, and
they're both named Tate.
We're gonna start a Tate. You know, what did I call it?
A Tate off.
A Tate off. We're gonna rank our Tate. A Tate ranking, if you will. So
a Tateo. No, that doesn't really work. Sorry.
What's we at?
So she's a journalist. Huh? She's a journalist, and she wrote like that dumb, like dead husband journalist, Central American thing.
We'll talk about. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's weird. So
you've got the cover. You've got the book.
Okay, so the cover, it's very strange because so it's this like this Our Christmas Gift to You silhouette thing, but it's obviously supposed to be looking through the window of like an elaborate toy store. But it's kind of weird and creepy because it's like overstuffed. Like you can barely like make out her name against all this stuff. Yeah. And it's like this, the big thing in the foreground is a carousel horse with a stuffed bear on the carousel horse, but it's weirdly centered around like the little, what do you call the things in a window between the panes? Like, so you can't see the stuffed bear's head. I don't know. It's like, it's very strangely inept.
Yeah, it's not a great.
It's so busy. Yeah, it's like
busy.
It's like screaming Christmas into your face, which I guess is actually the market here.
Yeah,
because the market for this book is clearly nice ladies, and we will get to why like when we get into it. Yeah. But so I'll read you the back copy. The Humbug Man. Montana rancher Tate Hollister had to be the grouchiest, grumpiest humbug man widow Maggie Jeffries had ever met. But as the holiday season progressed, Maggie discovered that Tate wasn't completely immune to the Christmas spirit. His loving embrace on a cold winter's night could prove to be the gift of a lifetime.
So, this book, oh my gosh. Okay, so
it's 95 pages, but so much happens in it. Like there's so much going on in this book.
Yeah, and it's paced well. So it starts off. The first beginning couple pages are clunky because I was like, what's happening now? So
yeah, she has moved to Tucson to get closer to Montana.
Yeah. She's from Tennessee originally. When she's 18, she meets this guy who's like 20, who's covering, I don't even know why he's in Tennessee. He's in like back-ass Tennessee. I can say that because my family's from back-ass Tennessee. She's like from the Tennessee mountains near Georgia. She meets this guy who's he's not a war correspondent at the time. He's just a journalist. They get married. They're basically like having old-timey Puritan sex, like because she's never been naked with a man.
I believe that this is all like I said, it's for nice ladies. So I think that this is all like they're the next best thing to virgins.
Yes,
you know. Because like something is similar with Tate, so that like they were married for a month. She got pregnant and he got killed in like Central American country. That's it. She's never seen a grown man naked with the lights on.
Yeah. So so she's in Tucson. She started at the bottom. Now she's here. She was a secretary, and then she became like an administrative assistant, and now she's like
the executive administrative assistant.
Yeah, she is the office.
She makes it's a printing company. She makes it run, and she is like you get the feeling that she is very good at her job and she likes her job, and I like that about this book.
It's computers.
She loves word processors. That's great.
Computers.
But her grandfather, no, her husband's grandfather. No, it's her husband's grandfather. It lives in Montana. So they moved to Arizona to be closer to Montana. And her son used to go all the time to see his grandfather in the summers. And then his grandfather suddenly died. And so her son, who's at military school for reasons not explained, like was he a behavior problem?
Oh, she does say why. She said that because it had just been and I guess this makes sense, because it had just been the two of them, that she really wanted him to learn independence and like basically in a nice way of saying she wanted to make a man out of him.
Maybe give him, I mean, I guess like the nicer way to think it is like it's just her and him and she wanted to make sure he had positive male role models. I don't know. Military school is weird because I mean, I guess I know that there are military schools that are not reform schools, but when I think about military, I knew plenty of people who went to military schools that were not reformed. Like what's the whatever academy where I'm sure it's just racist as shit that's like in Aiken.
Or there's the Camden Military Academy. See, the one guy that I know that went to it, his parents were like, "You're a fuck up," and sent him there. Christopher, my husband, the one guy that he knew that went to military school, got sent because he was a fuck up. So, that's kind of
sure.
But anyway, so he's in a military school for 6 months. She's in Tucson. It's Christmas. The grandfather has just passed away, and he has left her his ranch in Montana. So you got this little like 90-pound lady who doesn't know anything about ranching. Her son, who's like kind of ranching genius, for 9. So they're up, and it's not like what you think of when you think of like the Nora Roberts ranches. It's like it's a 2-bedroom cabin,
It's kind of shitty. It kind of sucks. I mean, and they have help. I mean, of course they have help because they could not possibly be actually ranching by themselves. Right. And she is not committed to this ranching thing. It's more like, okay, these people work for the grandfather and they're continuing to work, for the estate. And her son convinced her, let's spend a little bit of time before you sell the house, which, okay, that makes sense. Just see it. Like, let's just go see. Like, maybe we want to live in Montana. It's beautiful. So I don't get the impression they've ever went there in the winter before. No. Because the winter in Montana, and I appreciate that they don't just think it's beautiful, but it's also incredibly shitty.
Yeah. So, the neighboring ranch is owned by this Tate. What's his last name? Tate.
It's Tate Hollister.
Tate Hollister. And Tate Hollister is grouchy. Like her kid is obsessed with him, always talks about him, loves Tate Hollister, blah, 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 blah. And Tate
famously hates kids.
Yeah. Like, can't be bothered. So, Jesus, Hershey. Sorry, my dog is going nuts.
But they're having all these problems because like the men won't listen to her. I mean, would you? And she has nothing about the business. She just comes in, and the foreman, she was nice enough to let him go to Pennsylvania with his wife for Christmas, and so she's no control, and everything is fucked to fucksness. And her generator just went out, which means she could possibly fucking freeze to death. They have no wood. And the only hand who can fix it is drunk all the time. So that's how you meet Tate, is that he comes over, he's like, I heard you had a goddamn problem with your goddamn stupid generator, you stupid girl. And she's like, yes, I do. Can you fix it?
And it's kind of great because they just, okay, so this is what I've been wanting in a book, in that they're like snipey with each other, but they're never cruel, he comes in and she's just looking at him and he's like, what are you staring at? She's like, your hairline. And then, they're making back and forth at each other. And
it's equal. They're both giving as well as they get. He's actually there because her cows got out, and he's all like, I could shoot him. And he's like, well, they'd be unarmed. I mean, like it's
so they're sniping back and forth. Meanwhile, her son, what is that kid's name? It doesn't matter.
Oh, it doesn't matter. The kid is like,
I do want to see if, I feel like because especially she's written so long, I bet that there's a book where he's a grown-up now. You know what I mean?
Blake? Hold on. Blake.
Yeah. So, they're sniping at each other and Blake's just like, isn't it great? Blah, 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 blah.
But you can tell that Blake has ambitions to fix them up together.
Mhm.
And whereas Maggie has no time for Tate because A, he clearly doesn't like her. And B,
Yeah.
he hates her son, even though her son, and I mean it's like a quarter mile down the road, but her son still somehow tails along behind this guy like a kitten. And so anyway.
He fixes the generator. And he's like, I'll get somebody out here. Basically he does all of he's begrudging, but he's like, I'll get all this stuff fixed, And
which to be fair, when you live in a place like that, you do rely on your neighbors. So I do you one turn, you do me a turn, although I don't know what turn she could do him except for, the historical term. So and she gets hot for him all of a sudden because she's watching him fix a generator and he's good at it, which I get that.
What happens next? The accuracy of what happens next, because in this next 5 pages, had this happened to me, I would have been get in my house right now because we're fucking it out. That was the hottest shit. This man's competency. So her son is like, I want to go play in the, however many inches of snow and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, well, all right, just stick around. She's like, be back. What time to be back? This was the 80s, kids, back when you just told somebody what time to be back and they were supposed to come back at that time.
That's because they could read a watch back then.
And so 2 hours becomes 3, becomes 4, and she starts to panic. So she drives the little Bronco or whatever they have down to Tate's house. Because she knows, this is the other thing I like about her, is she knows, her limitations. She's not I'm going to go trudge through the snow to find my kid. One, she was her first thing was she thought he was at his house. Right. And she's like, have you seen my son? Blah, 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 blah. And he's like, no. He's like, he's hiding. He's playing a trick on you. And she basically just has a complete mom meltdown. And he's like, all right, let's go look for him. So they go to look and he finds
on horseback, by the way. That's hot. And she can ride because he's all like, oh, you can do a thing. And she's like, shit, I can do a thing, bitch.
So they're on horseback and he finds the kids prints and he's down by the river. And so she has a very natural mom reaction of, oh God, he's drowned, blah, blah, blah. And they start hearing him screaming. And as he's screaming, they get closer and the kid has fallen out of a tree or something. And you can tell he's broken his leg, but there's a timber wolf stalking it. And you hear the next thing is a gunshot and you're like, well, and then it comes to Tate going up to Blake and he's talking to Blake, keeping him very calm. And you find out that he doesn't shoot the wolf. He scares it off. He says that he fired just a shot to scare it because they're endangered.
And I was like, oh, my heart resizes, Tate.
Oh my God. And then, so he doesn't kill the wolf, but he saves the boy. And then he sets the kid's leg and does
the funny thing is, it is very clear that the kid's intention was to stay out too late or whatever to get his mom to go get Tate. He was not planning on breaking his leg. No. But he was totally planning this to get the two of them together. But
so Tate sets his leg and is telling them how he's doing it and keeping him calm, talking about how they're doing it the old Native American way, blah, blah, blah. And then he gives Maggie the gun to hold on to. And he's like, don't shoot your foot, and then he picks, then he gets on the horse and puts the kid in front of him on the horse. And they're just riding back in the town or back into his house. And this is the thing. It's so much sexier that he has the kid in front of him than if he had
had.
My God. So they get to town keep saying town. They get back to the house. He calls the doctor. This man's competency was, and it wasn't done in that aggressive, gross alpha way that's in a lot of these books. No,
it was just okay, so I'll call the doctor. You keep he didn't disrespect her or anything. He lives here, so he knows. And also they also showed how shitty it is to live in a ranch here because it's a long way. They have to go, and it's a scary road. It's really snowy, and they're lucky to be able to get somebody to. So I mean, it actually does. I was like, why are you setting his leg? Let the doctor do that. But then you find out what you have to do to get,
And then they get him home and get him situated, and she has the break. She has finally, she has her meltdown, and he's just, is you deserve to have the meltdown, and tells her she's not weak or dumb for having it. And like, because he's like, she's like, I'm sorry. And he's like, there's nothing to be sorry about. This is completely like natural and fine. And like, so
they finally have the moment where they both realize that they've both been like, oh, okay, yes, I want that thing. And so they have this like kind of like up against the wall like makeout session, but
it's really hot. Yeah,
it is really hot. But they what I liked about that is that like it wasn't like we shouldn't be doing this or except that like, oh, he's on the other side. And I do appreciate that the book got rid of the kid, put him in a leg cast. So like I'm always worrying. I don't like books with kids in them.
Yeah.
Like, fuck books with kids in them, because I don't want to think that the kid's always sneaking the fuck around about to to interrupt shit.
Oh,
so you gotta tag them down.
So Maggie finds out the night after he fixes the generator that he had been married and had a wife, and both of them died. And so, like, after she figures that out, she's a little bit more patient with him and realizing why he might not want to be around kids and stuff. So after the night, or after the day that he breaks his leg, they kind of talk about it a little bit, and like both acknowledge in a very adult way that they have an attraction to one another. And then they find out like neither one of them, aside from their like spouse, had been with other people, like they're not.
And so, I don't know that he was with his wife, because you find out happened with them is that the woman he married had actually been pregnant with his brother's child, and he died in a skiing accident. It's a terrible, tragic family. But his wife's family were like
dead too.
Yeah. Like they were super conservative, and so like they would have freaked out to know that she had gotten pregnant before they were engaged.
Yeah,
but like before the wedding, so you can't have that premarital sex. So he married her to kind of like save her reputation, and she never let him touch her. And she finally started to warm up a little bit when they were on this camping trip, and he let her and his son ride in the back. They said a trailer. I assume an RV, but it could have been like a horse trailer. Anyway, they zoomed off the fucking mountain pass.
They zoomed the mountain zoom.
Because this book is for nice ladies. And so to have them be making out, you have to have them be like widow and widower, because otherwise it's dirty. But then also it makes them until they're married, and it has to have them be almost like reborn virgins.
So wait, we'll get into the
I'm sorry. Yeah, but it's that. Like this weird like little baggagey stuff.
But they have this super hot makeout scene, and Maggie is like, I'm totally DTF, but like she's also like, well, what am I going to do with this ranch? So he's like, he leaves, and then the next day, or a couple days later, they're getting ready for Christmas. Her generator busts again. And what happens is Tate shows up, and he's like, I came to check on this janky generator. And he's like, I see it's broken. He's like, why don't you come to my house? And his house is very nice, Yes.
Yes. That's the house. Like, that's the Daniel Steele Ranch. Like, that's the house you're expecting, the Nora Roberts Ranch. Like, the one with the beautiful windows, which are so completely impractical, and like those, like, like Navajo style rugs. And it is hot. And he has a cleaning lady. Yeah. That's where you want to be.
But it's also like, I will say this, like Diana Palmer, like she couches everything in practicalism, because like, she's like, the house is 4 bedrooms, but it's not too fancy. The cleaning person is the wife of one of his ranch hands, like she's very and again, this book is only 95 pages. So the skill that it takes to like do that is really impressive. So they get to the house, and, he is like all in on Christmas stuff. They get they put up a tree, they're decorating. He's teaching Blake how to play chess, he had
told kind of a snowed in situation. Like the weather gets real bad. So they're improvising Christmas decorations. Like they're popping popcorn to make like garlic. It's cute. It's real cute.
Also, like there's a part where he gets really good with Blake, because, one, he told Blake about how great he had done with like the leg setting and all that stuff. And there's a part where he's like, did you take your pain medication? And Blake's like, no, I don't need it. Trying to be a tough guy, and he's like, I've broken my leg so many times. And this is very true. He's like, you need to stay on top of it and like take the pain medication. There is nothing to be ashamed of. And I was like, who is this man? This man is like,
This man is amazing because you're absolutely right. You need to get ahead of the pain because once it starts to hurt, it's going to be a lot worse.
Oh my God. So he and Maggie have like a couple of like tender moments, and then either Blake
he sleeps naked.
Yeah, Blake wakes up. There's some good outfits in this too, which we'll talk about later. Blake will wake up, he's always kind of there to kind of cock block him a little bit, or be their guy, their conscience, I guess.
Chaperone. Yes.
So
you learn that he sleeps naked, and like he's always just showing up without his shirt on, and she is obsessed with how hairy his chest is. She is like she wants to run.
Yeah, he is the hairiest.
Her hand through that man mat like nobody's business. It is so funny.
So Christmas Eve comes, and Blake, even like Blake is 9 and he's asking about Santa Claus, and essentially like Tate describes Santa the way that my family did when it was time to tell me like about how like Santa Claus is a spirit, blah, like it's just really good. Like the way that he handles this kid is amazing. He is a Marty,
like a Yes Virginia kind of thing. Yeah.
And so Blake goes to sleep, and neither one of she can't sleep because she just keeps thinking like her time in Montana is drawing to a close, and she knows that she's in love with Tate, but does Tate love her? That kind of stuff. And, they're up really early Christmas morning, and they have this, super hot makeout scene where basically, he does that thing where
she comes in on him completely naked. Like, he's in his own kitchen completely naked, which is weird, I have to say.
Yeah.
Especially if you're the cleaning lady.
Puts on his pants. Well, it's like 4 a.m, I think.
Yeah, it's the middle of the night, yeah.
So he puts on some pants. They're, sitting there. He pulls her in his lap. And she does that thing he's got her finger up, or he's got his thumb on her finger, and she sucks on his thumb. And he's sort of not slut shames her, because it's nothing nearly like that, but it's basically kind of don't start anything you can't finish.
Right.
And then she gets all embarrassed, and he's like, I'm sorry I embarrassed you, And then they're about to seal it. They're about to seal the deal, and then Blake wakes up.
Because those earlier times, there is some definite I don't know which base is which, quite frankly. I didn't get any in high school, but he's got her shirt all up.
Yeah.
All right. It is hot for
this book has a lot of foreplay. It has a lot of foreplay. Okay, so Blake wakes up because he's 9 and it's Christmas morning, and they every 9-year-old wakes up at 5 a.m. And he's like, it's Christmas, he's shooting himself out.
And they're like, put a pillow over that and sit down, son, because
basically what happens is after Christmas, Blake's just blissed out and they're talking, and it was really kind of this is the thing. There's nothing in this book because I was waiting for the one there was gonna. Again, it's only 95 pages.
But she hasn't discussed with him the problem of what am I supposed to do with the ranch? Do I want to stay here? I'm not sure I want to stay here. Blake has to be back in school. I have my job back in Arizona. And they don't. She doesn't really approach him with this conversation because it's not really his problem.
But also
that's it.
So basically he's like. Everything that she names, he's like, I'm buying that ranch. He's like, it's next to mine. I'm buying it. She's like, what about work? He's like, you're good with typing. I need somebody to help with the books and stuff. You're doing that. We're putting Blake in school here. She's like, we got it done. We're getting married. What are you talking about? and
she's like, okay, all right. Sounds good to me. I should have outsourced all my decisions to you a long time ago. You are clearly very good at making them and following through with them.
And you know what? And we'll talk about that more when we get into it, because we'll save that for questions. So
I don't mean that in a gross way at all.
Because so they almost have sex again, but then Blake cock blocks. So they finally
they say that they're going to wait for marriage.
I was like, is this book not going to have any sex in it? I was fine with it because everything else was so good, but the last 2 pages, they come back from the court justice, they basically just throw Blake out the window for a little bit, and they do it, and the doing it's very florid, and
it's nowhere near as good as the foreplay, and we'll talk about that later.
Foreplay is the best, and so that's the book. So
well, I thought it was so, and obviously we can talk about that more at length, but that I thought the whole point to writing books about people who were widowed is that they can fuck.
But okay, again, I feel We'll save it for questions. We'll do it.
Yeah. We'll return to that, and I want you to think about that until we get there. Reader,
Well, we're there. we're
No, we're
there.
not at that point yet. We're at question 1, which is big dick energy or big dick energy.
All right, so y'all, for me, if you haven't listened to any of our other episodes, one, I'm sorry that this is the one you're starting with because like, we are wild ass people right now. But the rest of you have heard me talk at great length about Matt Cutter from The Hood. The Hood we read because the cover of the book was insane. Like, it's an insane.
And then we felt bad for judging it for that because it turned out to be extremely woke.
Yeah, it's such a it's such just a progressive book for early 90s. Anyway, Matt Cutter is the bad boy accountant in that book who I would just throw his like heroin off a building for. Like, I would murder I'd be like Michael Douglas in The Game, just pushing bitches off of things. Like, I don't know if that's what happens in that book or in that movie, but
well, you realize though that she was a U.S. Treasury agent, and so I guess it would be the Secret Service who came to kick your ass. Oh, well, that would be unfortunate.
Nobody cared. Nobody in that office liked Doria. She was awful.
That's true.
So, okay, Matt Cutter was too good for this world, but Tate Hollister, y'all, here's the thing. Oh, the fucking competency porn in this man. Here's the thing about him that is amazing is like he gets shit done, but he doesn't do it in the way that a lot of these books read where a man just takes over and one either takes shit over and is condescending as fuck. Takes shit over and is condescending as fuck and treats the girl like it thinks that the girl is legitimately stupid. Like in this one, it was like,
sit down, little lady.
In this one, he's like, I am good at this. I need you to do this. Like there's assignments given like during, the emergencies and that kind of stuff. He
listens to her. Like when she says like, no, I know how to ride a horse. He doesn't be like, oh, really? You'll show me. No. He's like, well, of course you're an adult. If you say you know how to ride a horse, you know how to ride a horse.
He treats her. And that's the thing. Again, I love a gruff, grouchy, like my hero types. I love gruff, grouchy, and then I like the starchy, uptight ones. And this is the first one that we have gotten that kind of thing where, again, they're those things, but they're never cruel. We get a lot of people being cruel, and this man is never that to this woman. Like, he's a fucking, like, he's almost, again, he's like a Marty, like, he is a Marty Stew because he is so perfect. He is so fucking perfect.
He did sabotage her generator.
And I thought about that.
To fix it, okay?
Okay, I thought about that, and
I can't handle it.
Well, at first I was like, it's gross. But then I thought about it. I was like, he didn't do that until after they had like told each other that they liked each other and like that were really into a thing.
They made out on a door.
Yeah. Like he didn't just from the jump, do that. And also her generator was janky. And I think probably it was like,
it may have not had anything to do with them.
Well, I think like it might have been because what you find out at the very end of the book is, he's like, your son, like your son, when he broke his leg was hiding. So we would get together. And she's like, what? And he's like, yeah. And I messed up your generator after. Like, it was cute, like it wasn't. Anything
No. It was completely fine. It was like, okay, you know how there's almost 2 stories of a woman leaving an earring in a man's house. And one of them is, so that other bitch will see it. And then, but the other one is, so I'll have a reason to go and see him again. This is more like that. It wasn't completely fine. Which reminds me, okay, so we talked about a Tate off. Tate from Palomino was right about his, like, he was always right. But he was a dick about it to Samantha. Yeah. He was always like, are you sure you can really do this and that and the other thing? And the answer was usually no.
Well, he was not nice. Like, this guy was so, and I mean, again, he was just so, again, the gruffness worked. And like, again, like what I liked about this, we're talking about, like, we're using this to like pimp all of our other episodes, but like, if you take this and compare it to, again, let's say Ghost of a Chance, which is a gruff, take-charge guy, all he did was call that woman stupid.
And he was a rapist.
Yeah, you can't do this, you can't do that. this is, I mean, and this is fairly late because this book was 1986. This was fairly early to get kind of equal, because they were very much on equal footing with each other. And I really liked that about it. I really liked
mentally. Like, she's always at a bit of she's always a bit on a back foot because this is not her environment. If we were in her printing plant, I mean, look the fuck out, Tate, right?
But there's also a part, remember, okay, so there's a part in it where it's Christmas and she's got word processing software for her son.
Cute.
And, Tate has a computer and stuff, and she's like, oh, you have a computer? He's like, yeah. But then he's like, he sees how excited she is about the word processing and like how proud she is of like this being a thing that she's good at. And he's like, but I don't have that. And like, he totally has it, like, but he hasn't installed it. And he's, just something for her, allow her to be competent at. Like, he gives her that moment, and she's like, well, I'm going to
super cute.
Yeah.
And she gets her son. Oh my God. It's one of those really expensive, great games. It's got 3 discs. Now, if y'all are my age, do y'all remember like a 40 disc game? Yeah. And if you lost one, you were fucked. Yeah. But this is an innocent time. So a 3 disc game with hot stuff.
He does it again. He does it in a way that's sweet and endearing and like lovable and not condescending. Like,
right.
Oh, word processors. I have that, And, like she's talking about the games and stuff that she got for her kid. And he's like actively listening. That's the thing about him, is he actively listens to her. Yeah. And so he's right up there. Like if he had another 50 pages, he probably would be like, I mean, he might still be number 1 because he looks like Tom Selleck. He did. He set a kid's leg. He puts the kid on the horse with him. He just buys. He solves all of her problems, but again, he does it in a way that's not gross or condescending. He does it in a way that this is okay. God, this is the theme of this episode. So, Sweet Liar. Mm-hmm. Where we have the guy who just keeps throwing money.
It's so gross.
It's
so gross. And it allows her no agency and gaslights her. Yeah. Well, my favorite dude still is Chase from Night Song. But I'm not sure if he counts because he's a little later. Beverly Jenkins' first book, I want to say, is 94. So I don't think you can count a man after a certain point because we learned how to write romances better. But I still count Chase. First dude with a hot mustache.
Yeah.
Chase had a fine-ass mustache. And also, same thing. Chase completely understood and respected, her areas of expertise. And he would laugh at her, but it was not, like, in a mean way ever. Like, same thing. I think that Chase and Tate would have gotten along and had, a good beer together. Like,
yeah, I think what works on this one is, like, you feel for her in that it's, when he's like, well, I'm going to buy the ranch, I'm going to do this. It's not a thing of like, well, you can't handle it. It's a thing of, you don't have to handle it on your own anymore.
Yeah.
Which is
like, obviously your ranch kind of sucks. All right. But it's good for me to buy the ranch. So let's work together on this. It's not, it's never gross. It's never overbearing. It's never, I liked him a lot.
And this is a 95-page book and we got that much out of it. That's what's crazy.
Also, like, she starts off, her hate for Hiram is legit, which I think is great. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not that thing where she kind of, like, really, like, no, he's an asshole. And she says to her son, is that the guy who looks like a hat and a mustache stuck to a rock?
Yeah, he's so right. Which is a perfect segue into number 2, which is, would you talk shit with or about the heroine?
Oh, she was great. She gave as good as she got, and she was always ready to say something fucking funny and cut you the fuck down, which means that she's my girl.
I was worried about her at first because, like, she's very described in the same way that, like, our girl from Fantasy is, and that she's very thin and very fragile. Like, but then she ends up being like Tennessee Hill people, and, which I love. But yeah, she loves and the other thing I really liked about this is that, because again, Sarah, for Sarah, who hates kids and books, is because kids and books a lot of times aren't well written. Like,
right.
Her and her son had much more, like, to me, the only problem was that the kid always read just a couple of years older, but they have a very natural relationship versus some of the other books where it's like, mother.
That girl lady in fantasy didn't like her kids at all.
Yeah,
like she never talked to her children in any kind of normal way that you talk to your children.
Where the kids are just like, mother, like nobody's like mother, like it's like, I mean, she wrote those kids like B.C. Andrews kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In this one, her and her kid, they love each other. They get along. They have conversations. Like, and that's the other thing. I mean, I know that this isn't, you know, we'll get to this with our Bechdel to bitch question, but like, they have conversations about things that aren't just Tate Hollister or, you know, whatnot. And again, it's a 95-page book. I mean, and he's a dude, but, you know, still, like, they're talking about things, which I like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would kind of disagree with Courtney in this aspect, just because what I always think is funny is when you watch, like, okay, so we watched this episode like a month ago of Deep Space Nine, in which O'Brien's daughter, who is 9 in this, so same age, I have a 6-year-old at home, talks like a 4-year-old. Whereas my 6-year-old is like, why do you gotta be like such a noob, Mom? Like, why don't you, like, you know, he's very, he talks in this weird way that, like, he'll say yesterday, but he'll use this incredibly complex sentence structure to get across what he means, because 6-year-olds are just weird in the way that they use language, but also they're extremely adept. And,
I think for me,
he talks more like us than anything else. So I think that a 9-year-old, I don't have one, but I didn't see anything that he said that honestly my 6-year-old wouldn't say, except to say that somebody is Jake, yo.
I think for me, what it was is that he's in military school, and I always feel like that's aged up. Like, I don't feel like there's like elementary military school. I mean, maybe
how bad you gotta fuck up. That's gotta be the, oh my God. I'm like terrified of the idea of the kind of fuck ups that you would
I feel like that's like middle school and beyond shit right there. Like, you got you got a 4th grader in military, and maybe that's what it was. But like,
yeah.
But I really liked her. I liked that because again, I got worried because it was one of those where like, she's no nonsense, blah, blah, blah. But she was really, like, she was a lot of nonsense, but fun nonsense. And, you know, had fun with her kid and made jokes and stuff like that. And it
had this whole thing about how, like, okay, so her husband is dead. And, like, she didn't really date because all the guys wanted to fuck. And I'm like, But I felt that, like, okay, so I don't know that I bought the whole thing, but that it was her decision, that she chose not to do that. And of course that is entirely your decision. If your decision is not to fuck, you should not fuck. But I don't know though. I felt like a little bit of that was driven by like almost a specific audience for the book. Yeah. But, I mean, it was organic to the story. I've got no complaints about it really. It seems a little out of, I mean, the other silhouettes that we've read. And I mean, you get your titties out that far, you might as well put it in.
But I think also, like, I think what was interesting, and again, it's also the curse and blessing of this 95-page book. There's like allusions to like her being kind of disillusioned because, like, you know, she's the executive assistant, and it's just dudes probably like trying to just put it in all the time, you know.
Yeah.
So,
she's accustomed to all the ways that a dude can try to put it in. She's been on these terrible dates where she's like, well, that was especially, can you imagine in 1986? Luckily, you had a lot of pantyhose to protect you.
Yeah. And that, I guess we'll segue. I'm just jumping in. I'm segueing into the Arbeck Zelda bitch because this one doesn't pass it because she is the only woman. But I mean, again, it's
95 pages. And that tends to be the case with any series romance, any silhouette or harlequin or whatever, because they're just not long enough to have other characters.
Yeah. So,
but I kind of feel like it does pass it because, so her son is not a woman, but I mean, her son might as well have been a girl. Like children, it doesn't matter, you know, so, and she does have lots of conversations with their son that are regular conversations that people have with their children. So, not technically, but in spirit.
But yeah, and it's like nice, it's like talking about either making jokes with each other. Like there was a part where, you know, they're just hanging out at his cabin and they're reading a book about like animal husbandry, or like, you know, the son is learning about methane gases, and, you know, like stuff like that, and like
It's a poop joke. Yeah, and the son is like really interested in ranching. And when I mean ranching, I don't mean like the romance of the ranch, like how Tate and Palomino were like, go to the ranch. But actually interested, like, okay, so like, why did you cross that bull? You know, like, why? Yeah, the book is all about sex. It's just not about sex with people.
I do think it's interesting because, again, like the hints that happen in this book of like, and this kind of ties in it too, even though we don't have another woman, is that she talks about, you know, that she got married at 18 and didn't know anything. And her parents were, you know, they're Scots-Irish, like very no nonsense, you know, don't talk about things, parents. And, you know, how she kind of came into that relationship not knowing anything. And it was like, it's a bigger picture, you know, and then like her becoming a secretary and having to fight off dudes, and then becoming an assistant, and then becoming an executive assistant. You know, I think there's kind of these hints to dealing with sexism in the workplace, and, you know, all that kind of, like, that I really liked, that I thought was really, really sophisticated. And I think one of the interesting things is probably, you know, Diana Palmer, being a journalist for 16 years, is really good at like doing a short punch story. Like,
yeah, no kidding. This is absolutely the most efficient story we have ever read.
Yes. I'm like, it's up there for me. This one was so good.
There is no fat on this book.
Yeah.
You will read it in an afternoon, but there is a lot in there and nothing that doesn't need to be in there. It's very effective. So what is it, when it comes to consent, is this book more Robin Thicke or Marvin Gaye?
Oh God, it's so Marvin Gaye. Like, there's like nothing.
She's like, I'm not sure, and he immediately backs off, even though her titties are so titties.
But yeah, there is nothing in, like, neither one of them, like, it's all express consent. And like we said, what's interesting, and that's why I want to read another Diana Palmer book to see if this is her deal. Both of them are essentially, like Sarah said, you know, non-virgins. But this is the first
annulments. They're annulments.
But
they're
this
Catholic
is the first
annulments.
instance of a man that we've had.
Yes. And I mean, you got the feeling that he was not a virgin, but he had not had sex with his wife, because he's like, "Oh, dude, I'm out of practice with this." I think the one weird thing was they had that thing where he said, "Don't do this. Don't start none if you don't want to be none." And she takes it kind of the wrong. She's embarrassed and she takes it a little bit the wrong way. Like, that's the only part of this that I was like, but I mean, which is a realistic thing.
But then he does definitely apologize. He said, like, and they talk about it, like, and I think that's really savvy too, because especially in 1986, think about all the sexual miscommunications that are happening. This is, I feel like, there's a Courtney Milan book, because this is one of the things in romance that, you know, we talk about, is that everybody the first time out has amazing sex. This was, like, I feel like this was the first, like, a kind of precursor to actually having bad sex in a book. Because Courtney Milan, in one of her books, you know, the couple, their first time, it's terrible. And like they talk about it. And like, I feel like that's what happened here, was this, you know, they're having foreplay, it's hot and heavy. She does that thing with, like, you know, and then they have this miscommunication and they're both like awkward as fuck about it. And it was very real. Like, it was a very real, like, in that moment of like, well, shit, this is weird. I don't know how to act about it now. And I liked that a lot.
It was somewhat unrealistic that the dude who was described as a hat and a mustache stuck to a rock would then be able to say, I'm really worried that when I said that, you thought that I meant this. But I, you know, and like, you know,
it was really
too sensitive for realism, I think.
I don't know, but you know, I don't know. Like, but at the same time, it's great to hear and see.
Oh, it's good modeling. Good modeling, I think.
You don't know. You haven't been with a Montana hat rock man. You don't know.
I'm picturing like, oh, what is it? Oh, I can't even think. Like, is it the Muppet? I'm imagining like a thing where it's is it Fraggle Rock? I don't know. That rocks that talk and they move up and down and they have, you know, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry. I did not add anything to this episode with that. So, how badly are you judging your mom off for reading this book?
She would have totally read this one, I think, and I would have loved it. I would have loved this one. This would have been a Courtney jam. This
book is made to make mamas feel good about reading it because they don't fuck until they're married, but yet they have really good titty sucking.
I feel like I might have read a Diana Palmer once before, and I think there might have been some kind of like sex issue. I think like the girl had like some kind of, it was very explicit because I remember like she had some kind of super, and this is a thing, like super, like her hymen had to be surgically removed.
Yeah, people had to have that.
And so it was, I remember like them trying to do it and like literally her super hymen wouldn't let them, you know? So I want to think like I'm interested to do another Diana Palmer to see if this is a thing.
Yeah, a thing. Well, can I recommend a modern book, like a contemporary being a thing in romance, and there's no way to say a historical that came out in the last 20 years. I read this book because I heard somebody was so enthusiastic on Reddit about Joe Goodman. That I'm like, okay, I'll read one of those. I'll get whatever is not, has a waiting list on Libby at the library. Mm-hmm. And I read this thing called In Want of a Wife. And so she does westerns, like historic westerns. Mm-hmm. And I loved it. I was so good, but it was about a grumpy dude, and it was about like a woman who'd been through some business. She was a mail order bride and all this. And the one thing I didn't like about it relied a lot on that. Like if you've read all the books that are set in that town, you know everybody who's fucked in that town, and there's Moppets. But other than that, other than the adorable fucking Moppets, the book is great because it's about people who've experienced trauma, and they have they get married, and they're like, well. And he doesn't want to push her, and she doesn't want to like do it, or she's not sure. It's that whole mail order bride thing. But same kind of idea of like, how do we communicate about this in a way, and we're not good at it. But also, he was also fun. I mean, I think if you like this book, you will really like. It's called In Want of a Wife.
And we have it listed on our website.
Yeah, we will. But she's a modern author who writes historicals that I think that you will like if you like this contemporary book, which was written 40 years ago. Explain that in romance terminology.
Okay. Would Scarlett Johansson be in the movie?
Sure, they're all white.
They're all white, but we also have 3 characters, so it's kind of a tough, But still, like we've said, it's 95 pages. I'm giving it a little bit more of a pass than I would other ones because, again, it's 95 pages. We have 3 characters and a wolf. So it does use the word, like, I guess this could actually be a trigger warning. It's, if you get the old copy, it does have, it's Indian artifacts, Indian decor. So,
Yeah, which I know a lot. I mean, obviously a lot of people who are indigenous do use, but it's used to mean like rugs. So that can't be okay, right? I mean, and so like that would be the one, like, I think it's like I feel like it's her trying to be, oh, they have all these things, but it's also 1986 and insensitive. Yeah, exactly. You're not leaving the house looking like that. He never wears an undershirt because God gave him an undershirt.
He never wears an undershirt.
Darwin gave him an undershirt.
He also has he wears the Stetson man, like he's in his jeans, he's got the jacket to his knees, the shearling jacket. She's in jeans and flannels, but like cute. Make it fashion. Yeah. She's got sexy pajamas. There's a lot of sexy pajamas. There's one where her titties come out. She's wearing jeans because it's the middle of the night, and she puts on her jeans, and she puts on, they call it so I assume a long sleeve t-shirt, but she doesn't put on a bra. I'm imagining like a hint. She's also one.
He enjoys that very much.
She's one of those women that doesn't need a bra. Like, ugh.
Of course, because if I did that, it'd be like, oh my god, my eye.
Mm-hmm. What a life. Okay, hold on. All right, so would your 12-year-old self have dog-eared any pages?
The foreplay in this is hot.
The foreplay
sex is boring.
I think because I need to go back and reread it because I felt like I was like, what is this book ending? Because there's like 2 pages, like it's 2 pages of sex, but it's very florid. They connected, like she's more descriptive. It's so hot in the foreplay of it. Like, the sexual tension between these two is great, but yeah, it's not hot sex talk.
Like they both know what's coming. It's kind of that inevitable thing. But then she walks in on him completely naked in his own kitchen, and she's like, "It's your kitchen, but oh my god, that's a lot."
Yeah,
it's kind of great. I kind of loved it for that.
I would have, like, my 12-year-old stuff. Like, this is probably like quintessential what I was reading, because it's like, it's very gentle. Like, it's very. I liked it. It was good.
Yeah, and the foreplay is. That's the thing about books that are more hot on the intercourse. Often, I guess, like people, like people who wait to get married probably have hotter foreplay.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, like makeout sessions. Well, the last time you really had a makeout session as a grown up.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like that.
It was good. It was good.
What pairs nicely with a dumpster fire?
I'm going to suggest Cooper and Thieves, barrel aged or it's like bourbon or whiskey barrel aged wine, because it gives you a little of both.
I would say something mulled, like a mulled wine.
Yeah.
My husband and I, we got married at the end of October, and we took a honeymoon to Eastern Europe. A, because we're cheap, and then B, because my husband really wanted to see everywhere that Vlad Tepes had ever been. And we had a blast. But so it turns out that everywhere over there in the winter, they have hot mulled wine. And for cheap, in a cheap, shitty little, like that, you're at a wedding where they didn't spend any money on glass, and you can enjoy your mulled wine. Yeah, and it's it's just delightful. It's the cheapest wine. It kind of burns going down, but it does warm you up. And so, I would say that, like, that mulled wine you get a tourist area in the winter in Europe, is what this kind of tastes like. It's a quick thrill.
That sounds, this was a super, I like, you feel like this is like, it's a fun book to like have by a fire. This is the perfect time of year for it. Very cozy. It's a very it's an easy read it to get rid of 2020 fun book. I would highly recommend this one. I would highly recommend.
That or those Murderbot novellas are the only books I've been able to finish, since my husband went in the hospital. It is if you are experiencing something like that, or it's just 2020 is a lot for you right now, please read this. This will just do it for you, and you can finish.
It's so sweet. It's such a sweet book. And you know what? Like, if you're one of our listeners who is like, shit, I need something like that, send us an email at bodicetiplers@gmail.com, and we will mail this book to you. That will be our end of 2020, beginning of 2021 gift to you, because it was such a nice little book. I loved it.
And it's so tiny, it won't cost anything to mail. It's itty bitty.
Basically, I can throw it and the wind will take it to you. So it was a very fun book.
The funny thing is, though, I thought this was going to be a super quick episode, because it's a 95-page book, but she packed so much into those 95 pages.
Yeah.
She's I definitely want to read more of hers.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. So this is our last of 2020. Thank God. I'm going to go ahead and announce it, because we're doing it next. It'll be hopefully relatively soon. We're doing our next one for all of you listeners who want to read along. Let's get lucky. We're starting 2021 with a bang. We're going to be doing Jackie Collins' Lucky. So you guys grab a copy and read along. I'm trying to find a way that we can watch. The miniseries is insanely long. The miniseries is 5 hours, but we are going to find a way to do some kind of watch party if you're a member of our Patreon. If you're not, patreon.com/bodicetiplers. $1 a month gets you really cool swag, and we have fun parties, like Zoom parties and, contests and things like that. So Lucky is our next one. So let's hope 2021 is luckier than 2020.
I don't do collard greens for New Year's, and so is this my fault? I really don't like collard greens.
I'm trying to end the year and the episode on an upbeat. What we don't need is you sounding like Tina from Bob's Burgers to end the damn thing.
I tell you what, I can make a goddamn Black Eyed Peas sing though.
I hate a Black Eyed Pea. Both the band and I don't like a. You know I don't like I don't like a fibrous bean pea thing. It's not my jam. Anyway, so if you are not following us on Twitter, it's BTipplers. If you don't go to our website, it's bodicetipplers.com. Like I said, patreon.com/bodicetipplers and on Facebook and Instagram. So you should follow us there. And 2021, we're starting off getting lucky.
Yes.
Bodice Tipplers is part of the Frolic Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcast.